Hello everyone, welcome to today's math lesson here. Today's lesson is pretty much just to continue to work on what we have learned the last 2 days that were both new. So just kind of practice it today and tomorrow to make sure that you get this down, because you need to have this for the next thing that we're learning is Pythagorean theorem. So you have to get good at being able to solve equations that have, in particular, exponents of 2 in them. Right, but we're also going to be talking about these ones with an exponent of 3 like we learned yesterday. We'll end up taking the square root of 1 and 3 for the second algebra step, and you'll end up taking the cubed root for number 2 and 4, again for the second algebra step. Just a quick reminder before you pause the video to try these, that our first goal is to get the x squared, or the w cubed term or the y cubed term. Get that alone first, and then your final algebra step should be to take the square root or the cube root. And then finally, last reminder is that remember that if you, in an algebra problem, take the square root of both sides, you need a plus or minus sign for your final answer to consider both the positive or negative root. For a cubed root, however, a plus or minus sign is not necessary. Alright, so pause the video, try this. This is really the only thing for today, so it's a short lesson. Alright, so pause the video, see if you can get these right, really challenge yourself to see if you can get all 4. Alright, so let's go ahead and hopefully you paused it and tried it. We'll go over each one of these answers. For number 1, my first goal is to get the x squared alone, so I got to get rid of this times 5. The opposite of multiplying by 5 is to divide by 5. So I do that both sides, and I get x squared is equal to 9. I still have a squared term there. I got to get rid of that exponent of 2. The opposite of squaring is to square root. So I take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared, we've done that a bunch, is x. The square root of 9 is 3. And since I took a square root of an algebra problem, I have to remember to include my plus or minus sign. So my answer would be x is positive or negative 3. Okay, for number 2, I have 3w cubed equals 24. This would be 3 times w cubed equals 24. So the first thing I have to do is get rid of that times 3 out in front, the coefficient of 3. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. That gives me my w cubed term alone. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And then to get rid of the exponent of 3, the cube, I got to take the cubed root, like that. Okay, the cubed root of w cubed, those are opposites, inverse operations, so that's going to leave me with just w. And the cubed root of 8, what number, when you multiply it by itself 3 times, gives you 8? Well, that's 2, right? 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8, right? So the cubed root of 8 is 2. And those are definitely a little bit harder. That's why it's good to remember the ones that I put in your notes for cubed roots. Okay? For 3 and 4, our last 2 for the day, I got to get this x squared alone first, so I got to get rid of this minus 30. Alright, so the opposite of minusing 30 is adding 30 both sides. And I'm going to get x squared equals 81. Looks like I'm running out of ink here. The opposite of squaring x is to take the square root of both sides. And I'm going to have to switch pens up. That's my trusty red pen. Bummer. That seems to be. Let's see if this works here. X equals 9. And again, since I took the square root of both sides, I need the plus or minus sign. So my answer is x is equal to plus or minus 9. I have to go to orange for my last one here. Okay, and then the last one, y cubed plus 8 equals 35. I need to get the y cubed alone first. The opposite of adding 8 is subtracting 8 from both sides. This leaves me with y cubed equals 27. I need to get rid of that exponent of 3, which is a cube, so the opposite of cubing something is taking the cubed root, just like we did on number 2. and we get y is equal to, what number when you multiply it by itself 3 times gives you 27? That's 3. 3 times 3 times 3 gives you 27, right? 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27. Now last thing, I'll just make one last statement here. This isn't a mistake. These two have plus or minus signs, these two don't. The reason is when you look at the line just above our answer, right? Before I put the square root in, let me put a different color in just to, so you can distinguish this. This isn't part of your solution here, right? But if I checked my problem here, I'll just do number 1. This was the original problem. I'll do a check for it. You don't have to do a check, but I'm showing you how it works. If this was my original problem, I could plug in 3, and 3 squared is 9, and sure enough I get 45 equals 45. So 3 is indeed an answer because I plugged 3 in for x and it worked. But you'll see that when I do my check, if I plugged in -3, it still gives me a true statement. -3 squared, well, -3 times -3 is 9. And sure enough, I get a, I get a true statement that still holds true. So when I plug in 3 for x, it gives me a true statement, and -3 for x, okay? If I were tried to, for number 2 to check, well, I said my answer is 2, so the answer 2 should check. So I do 3w cubed equals 24. So 2 cubed equals 24. 2 cubed we already said is 8, right? 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So we get 3 times 8 is 24. And 24 equals 24. So indeed that does check. But we did not say that -2 was an answer. And here's going to show you that -2 doesn't check, right? Just to prove to you that the negative doesn't work for these cubed ones, which is why we don't take the plus or minus side in a cubed root. Take the same equation and we plug in -2 for w. Well, -2 cubed is going to be -2 times -2 times -2. Well, -2 times -2 is +4. 4 times -2 is -8. Okay? That's going to give me a problem here because now I get 3 times -8 is -24, and -24 does not equal 24, so -2 is not an answer. So I just showed you this again to try to, if you didn't believe me or thought it was kind of magic coming out of thin air, just to show you again why when you take the square root of an equation you need the plus or minus sign, but when you take the cubed root, like on 2 and 4, you do not need the plus or minus sign. Okay? That's it for the lesson for today. Please try page 12 after the assignment. Alright? For number 5 and number 6 on page 12, you can use a calculator to round to the nearest tenth for those ones. So for these two here, use a calculator because they're not going to come out to be an even answer. You're going to get a long decimal and you'll have to round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so I wanted to give you a couple like that because you will get that next week too when we do what's called the Pythagorean theorem. Alright, have a great Wednesday, enjoy the sunny day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.